Okay, so video entry number 1, journal number 3 of Shortridge Edition. I decided to go with a video for my third entry in order to spice things up a little bit, and because I think I might be able to connect with it a little better in the future, and I might value a video experience a little bit more. The first thing I wanted to bring up was one of the reasons I decided to do a video, and that's Casey Neistat, a well-known YouTuber and film creator who bases his videos and his premise off the fact that a person can make a great film with just simply a camera. You don't need million-dollar equipment, you don't need million-dollar budgets, equipments, actors, anything. You just need a camera and a vision and a story to get something done, and I think that's inspiring for all sorts of mediums across everything, musically, artistically, writing, anything. So that's some of the inspiration I'm taking to film a video like this, and I hope it will continue to inspire me in the future as I talk about Shortridge and my experiences there. In my second journal entry, I touched on briefly, not briefly, it was one of my main points that, you know, I was very nervous going into the first day at Shortridge, as I'm sure most people were, and how my anxiety has sort of been shut down in the recent weeks since that happened. It's been a slow burn, but as I've been able to develop relationships with other Shortridge students, the anxiety about going to the club or something like that has really been shut down because you become familiar with connecting with these students over and over again, which is really refreshing. And it's cool to make new friends and try to be a mentor to these younger kids. The first thing I want to start off is with a funny story, or two funny stories. One of the days I sat down in the classroom, I sat across from Alex in the class, and he looked at me and started talking to me and said, what year are you here? And I said, well, I'm a sophomore, thinking he was talking about Butler. And he said, oh, that's great, so are you new to Shortridge or whatever? And I was like, no, Alex, I'm one of the mentors. So just being mistaken for another high schooler has been kind of common, because a couple days later, that Thursday, I was at the table in the lunchroom with kids talking, and one of the girls said a swear word and then looked at me closely and said, oh wait, are you a mentor? And I said, yeah. And she said, you know, I never want to swear around adults. And then Jared, one of the other kids, said, you know, Tom, you know, he's not really like a mentor, so I don't know what that exactly means, but I think it's a good thing in that the kids feel that they can connect with me because I'm a close age, and I really am. Most of the kids I'm like 2, maybe 3 years older than, so the distance is really small, which is cool. Then I wanted to talk about like 3 of the main kids that I've developed relationships with, and one's Daryl, who been spending a lot of time with in the writing center. A couple weeks ago, we started making his anime project with some of his friends. He also brought into the class, which was really cool, since I know nothing about anime. A couple days ago, he brought in a pair of white sneakers that he had colored and designed with a bunch of different rapper names on it, which is cool. And just the one thing I get from Daryl is that he's just such a sense of excitement towards life, and he pursues things to the utmost potential, and he's always very excited and charged up, which is exciting to see, because I'm someone that's more mellow, but having someone that's so excited like that gets me charged up too, which is awesome. The second person is Jared, who I think most people in the school generally associate him with being basically like the speaker kid. Like he just always has a speaker, he's always carrying around playing music, but he really is a thoughtful individual, and he has a lot to say when he's not joking around. He has a lot of meaningful things to say, and he really does think on a lot of powerful topics. So I think Jared's really taught me to not, there's so many people in high school or anywhere in life that you can't overestimate or undervalue just because you don't know them very well. it's really easy to classify people as, oh, that's just the speaker kid, you know, he likes to listen to loud rap music, I'm going to devalue him because of that, and you really can't do that. And I think that's something I suffered with from high school. Like, this kid has a certain gimmick, therefore he can be devalued or something like that. Or I just didn't connect with too many kids outside of my friend group in high school because I didn't feel a reason to. So it's exciting to meet new people, different perspectives at Shortridge. And the last person I want to mention is Carlos, who is Jared's friend, who has recently started coming, and he's very he still hasn't. He probably had bragged to me the last class last week, Thursday. He said, "Tom, I still haven't written anything yet." And I said, "That's great, Carlos. I guess I don't know what you're aiming for, but as long as he's there, I think he's having a good time. So that's good to see." He just likes to laugh a lot. So I mean, you really can't have a problem with that. It's just funny to be around him. So. Well, those are the three main kids I really connected with and enjoyed having an experience with at Shortridge. You never expect that, I mean, that's never really in your expectations to meet real people when you're signing up for the class, I guess, but then you get in there and there are real people who, you know, have powerful things to say. Even though they may be 16 years old, they have powerful things to say. And I think that's important for all adults to see. Even when I'm 19 years old, it's important to see that, hey, this 14-year-old does have something powerful to say, and just because they're young doesn't mean it should be undervalued. I think I touched on connecting with students, and then we talked about, when we were talking about for white folks that teach in the hood, I didn't really have a chance to speak because I feel like our class does have a lot of really powerful speakers who have important things to say. I think sometimes I just, you know, don't feel that I may belong in that group. But I think teachers that really do adapt to students is incredibly important for the success of students. From an early age all the way through high school, there has to be teachers who are willing to change and adapt based on what a student needs. I went through, you know, special education my entire life, so I've dealt with that kind of stuff, and the people that really helped me were the teachers that really helped me and allowed me to learn were the ones who let me go off their curriculum. When I was in second grade, my teacher, I had a hard time reading, hard time writing, hard time doing math, and I really struggled to read. I could hardly do it as a second grader. It was like, is this a permanent disability, or what's the problem with this? But my teacher essentially was like, you know, if he can find some interesting fantasy books, just let him read. And so rather than doing any other kind of work, my teacher let me read all day long. Just constantly, you know, Huck Finn, Tom Sawyer, Aragon, Harry Potter, just let him read and let him enjoy reading and see where it goes from there. And because of that, I evolved in the course of like 3 years from struggling to read in the first place. By the time I was in 4th grade, I was at, you know, a 12th grade reading level, college reading level. So adapting to the student is extremely powerful. And I've witnessed that firsthand in recent years, and I've seen that on the opposite end too. In the math department in my high school, we had teachers that aren't willing to go away for the curriculum, even when you do have students that struggle with certain problems, or, you know, this grading aspect doesn't work with them. If you get away from the curriculum, you can allow a student to learn, and I think that's the biggest roadblock for many teachers, is that they're so set in their ways that they don't allow the student to learn in the first place, which is obviously why we're there, and that's obviously why it's so important. So like I said, that experience was huge for me with special education. As a student who was involved in a lot of rooms in high school and middle school and elementary school where I was isolated or away from the regular kids because I did have a disability, Um, it's cool to see a room like like our space at Shortridge, where different kids can just hang out and be together. And I think you or Professor Speckman creates a really cool environment where there's just a lot of openness there, like in terms of just swearing. Like it is such a basic part of our language, and we talk about code switching and stuff. You know, high school kids swear. It's something that happens. So when we're in the classroom and they feel a need to say the F word or something like that, you can't try to stop them, because I mean, what good is that going to do? So I think that's a way that Professor Speckman really adapts to the classroom setting, which is really important, so kids can feel comfortable in that. And I guess it also gives a certain coolness factor to the professor too, or the teacher in this case, which is awesome. So yeah, I think my overall impressions have been just connecting with students has been really powerful for me. It's been, like I've touched on in the past, I did a lot this summer with high school students through basketball, but it's been cool to do it in a different setting and still see that there's a connection there. And the whole experience I've really enjoyed, and really enjoyed the group session on Tuesday, in which we talked about just a bunch of different topics from the book, you know, White People That Teach in the Hood, and different ways of adaptive teaching, and things that seem obvious, you know, that we should change that aren't necessarily there. So I think, you know, this has been a great class so far, and I really hope to create future video journals to continue to compare stuff. But yeah, thanks.